Finally, the Illini have gotten that big old monkey boulder thing off their back and made it to the Sweet 16. Now, the next matchup's going to be a lot tougher than the first two rounds. So, what better, again, to bring on our guest? You may remember him, Mr. Joe Jackson. I brought him on before the tournament started to kind of preview the Morehead State game. Joe, thank you again so much for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. I'm always excited to talk hoops.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't tell folks enough how much I enjoy Joe's channel. It's Feed the Post on YouTube. I'll have the links in the description a little bit later. But Joe, can you just kind of describe to the audience what Feed the Post is?
Yeah, so YouTube channel, Feed the Post. It's Big Ten centric in general. So do a lot of like film breakdowns, or right now because um, NCAA is a stickler about being able to use any sort of their clips. It's a lot of just scouting reports. So I have previews up for Illinois, Iowa State. If Illinois is to win, I'll have their preview up against whoever they play in the Elite Eight. I'll also have Purdue stuff up because they're the only team remaining. But yeah, a lot of film breakdown in that right now for Big Ten teams.
So first there were six, and now two. And, you know, it's kind of the two that most people probably guessed would have the longest, staying power, I guess you can say, in the tournament. You know, let's start off talking about the Illini. Now, again, Joe is a Purdue fan, as you can kind of see in the background, and he does participate in Purdue content creation. But again, this shows that at this point, if the regular season's over, we're on opposite sides of the bracket.
Yep.
We can all be cordial and friendly until the inevitable, I hope, meet up number 3 in the national championship, which would be bonkers online.
Oh yeah, it would be something. But I do hope it happens because that means both teams are in the championship.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I have no hate against the Purdue team. Matt Painter, my brother went to Purdue, so it's like I have relations to it. It's just the fans who I tend to have some fun with. So,
It's fair enough.
regardless, let's just talk about. Check it out. Asks a question. Thank you for watching this morning. Seems like the Illini should not do booty ball in this game. We'll get to that in a second. Check it out. Thank you again so much for watching. First off, let's just talk about the first two games. Obviously, Morehead State and Illinois finally kind of got a break when it comes to the bracket, in Duquesne beating BYU. Now, Illinois fans, don't apologize for this. There's been very few teams that have gotten the unfortunate luck that Illinois has had the past couple of years. So it's one of those where, yeah, we got a break, enjoy it, relish it. It doesn't happen to us very often, but the game on Thursday night against Iowa State is going to be against a whole nother beast compared to what we've gone through in the first two rounds. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, 100%. And so I'm happy, that Illinois did get that break and was finally able to get through to the Sweet 16. The reward, though, is Iowa State and then most likely UConn to try to go further. So it balances out really, really quickly.
Yeah. It's I'll take it.
Yep.
So give us maybe just a quick synopsis. Now, again, if you want more in depth of what Iowa State does really well, check out Joe's video. That's going to be in the description. But, I feel lazy saying, because everyone's already talked about being the number one offense in the country going up against the number one defense in the country. But again, if you had to do a quick scouting report on what Iowa State does well, what would you say it is?
So they cause havoc. It's kind of what they do defensively. It's well known they're number one in defense. They're number two in the country in forcing turnovers. They're number three in forcing live ball turnovers, like steals. Based on their percentages, one out of every four on average, one out of every four possessions is a turnover for a team. That's like a crazy stat. And so what they do is they'll we'll talk about like the post and the booty ball probably. I'm sure more in depth in a second, but like they'll always trap that pick and rolls. They'll bring their big up a lot to just try to force it out of the ball handler's hands. They rotate well. It's they have dudes that can score, like and especially in Gilbert and Lipsy, but their identity is without a doubt defense, speeding the game up, and just really just causing havoc and just making teams really, really uncomfortable in the half court and doing things, making mistakes that they probably wouldn't normally make.
So let's just kind of dive into it. We had our first comment about it, and you've kind of already brought it up. Obviously, a huge aspect of Illinois' offensive firepower is like when it's not Shannon running in transition, it's Marcus Domask getting the ball down low and basically backing it down and either scoring if they don't double, or if a double comes, finding the right guy, making the right play. From all the scouting I've done between your show and other channels, it sounds like Iowa State is very, very good at defending that. So we're going to have to find an alternative.
Yeah, they are very, very good. They're going to double every time. They're probably going to be comfortable doubling at the 3 point line even, and so there's two ways to go about it then for Illinois. If you know, because you know the double's coming, right?
Mhm.
One is you just don't run it, which maybe if Terrence Shannon gets going or whatever, maybe they do just kind of go to him even more in the half court. The other thing is you know it's coming and you try to set up guys to be open for shots, and so if Iowa State does put two on the ball, right, or they trap, that means somewhere on the other side somebody has to be somewhat open, right? That's you're going to have a 4-on-3 on the other side, and so this is where I think like Coleman Hawkins could be pretty important because I think he'll be the mix of he's obviously six 6'10", 6'11", but can facilitate. Like he can be a guy that I think Domas could find in a gap, and then Hawkins can take it, go, and kind of facilitate to where it needs to. So like if Luke Goody's in, like he's got to knock down threes because he could be a guy that they skip past to, right? And so skip pass means pretty much like essentially passing it like across the court. Like those are the things that can be open from this because Iowa State has to rotate, right? And especially when if Danger's in or Rogers in, they're going to hang out near the rim, and so that takes a defender with them down there. And so those skip passes are what's available. It's easier said than done against Iowa State. Like Domask, he tore up Morehead State, right, and had the triple double and all those assists because that's what they were doing too. Morehead State's not quite as good defensively, Iowa State, to say the least. So it can definitely be done, and Damask has shown that he can 100% be a facilitator. He's just never had to do it against this type of defensive level. I mean, like a similar team in terms of style and trapping the post, and that would be like Northwestern or Nebraska. It's a pretty similar concept, but once again, Iowa State's just much, much better at doing it.
Are you having issues with my visual or no? I wasn't sure. My screen froze up for a second.
Oh no,
So,
you're good.
okay, good. You brought up the key guy who I want to actually bring up talking about this game with a lot of folks thinking, Iowa State's going to be able to kind of minimize Domask's output in this game. I think the key to this game could be Coleman Hawkins. And one of the reasons I'm more optimistic than some when it comes to our chances tomorrow night is that we can put 5 or 6 guys all out on the floor, wing players that can handle the ball, that can pass the ball, which you kind of need to be able to defeat these double teams. We don't always have the lumbering big guy who's kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere. I mean, should we play Danger? Of course, he might be that guy, but we can go institute lineups out there that can kind of, I'm not going to say beat the double team, but at least can increase your chances against that style of defense. So I agree with you. I think Coleman Hawkins is going to be huge in this game. We may need his ability to. He's going to be getting a lot of those passes, wide open at the 3 point line. Now, is he going to be able to make them? I think you talked about a stat. I think we're like 17 for 51 or something like that from outlet passes or skip
Yeah,
passes or
yeah.
something like that. I think I have it right. Again, fantastic. It's that kind of information was why you needed to tune into Joe's channel. Just super invaluable. And it's I don't know how to say this. Like obviously the kind of the star of this tournament has been Terrence Shannon Jr.
Yep.
And he's kind of erupted ever since essentially that Purdue game. He took control of the Big Ten tournament. He finished second all time in points scored, and he played one less game than the guy ahead of him. But this seems like the type of game where Iowa State's going to do their best to kind of mimic what Purdue did, limit those transition points. I'd imagine they're probably sending everybody towards grabbing a rebound and not letting Terrence get put his head down because they play so well against Marcus Damas's booty ball style. I feel like if they can negate Terrence Shannon's strengths, then they've taken two of the big guns out of Illinois' arsenal.
Yeah, I agree. I think and Iowa State does a very good job of loading up at the rim, so they're going to send multiple defenders at the rim pretty much always. Um, and now it's Terrence Shannon, so like sometimes it just doesn't matter. And as I was, I was prepping for my video, there's just a few plays I saw of him transition. He literally would catch 1-on-4 at half court and not get touched and just finish at the rim. And it's like, all right, well, sometimes you just can't do anything about that. So I think the transition part, especially like if Shannon has it, he's got to go. Just don't even let Iowa State set up, and just go from there. And everybody knows he can be a dynamic finisher. But then yeah, in the half court, like if they run the pin downs for Terrence Shannon or pick and roll or whatever, like they're gonna load up at the rim. And that's again where I think Hawkins can come in. Is this guy just kind of just almost this release valve of he can knock down a shot, and he's shooting obviously really, really well this year. He's also become, I think, a better facilitator in terms of like
Absolutely.
he, because right there's like the stereotype with Coleman Hawkins, which up until this year has been very fair, and the only way I can kind of describe it is Coleman Hawkins is better at like not being that Coleman Hawkins stereotype this year, of just making those crazy plays and stuff like that. Do they come every once in a while? Sure, but you got to live with those. But he can be the guy that can be a release valve. I think can facilitate to the open guy. Hopefully, knock down a three. I mean, he's had a game. What he scored 30 somewhat recently. February
Yep.
24th, followed it up with 20 against Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
So like he's a dude that can score the ball too. So and his versatility at that size, like I think he'll be a pretty important defender, depending on who they put him on. Like if they do put him on like Momcilovic or whatever. Um, yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a pretty important Coleman Hawkins game.
So what about another kind of standout star for the Big Ten tournament, and he had we call him the mid-major killer, Dane Danger, who I brought up earlier, is a guy who plays that style. I mean, obviously he's a big boy, but he's not really the type he's not a great passer. That's kind of one of the reasons he didn't play very much earlier in the season. And defensively, he still has a lot to work on. Do you think this, like, when Dane is on, he's an incredible asset to the Illini because he's really our only one low post, almost instant score when he gets the ball down low. But he also does so many things not so well that other teams are kind of able to exploit that, and Brad Underwood almost immediately has to take Dane Danger out of the game. Do you think this is a game where his strengths will outweigh his potential weaknesses, or do you think Dane may not get as much run as he wants to tomorrow night?
It feels to me like he won't get as much. And I'm very willing to be wrong on that. But like, just with Iowa State doubling the post every time, he's going to have to either go up quick or make passes out of the double. And if he can do either of those, then yes, then he'll get more minutes because just being able to provide a body down low will, I think, be important. Um, and then on the defensive end, like Iowa State does a very good job of finishing at the rim. So uh, Danger's would have to be a good rim protector also, and I think he can be that at times, 100%. It just feels like not quite the match. I still think he gets some minutes for sure, and if he pops off, then Underwood's probably going to ride with him. But uh, to me, on the outside, it just doesn't feel exactly like the type of game that he would play. I'm looking ahead to maybe like a UConn or either UConn or San Diego State. Like that would be more of the game I could see him playing.
Check it out once again. Comments: shouldn't our natural guards play more important roles, i.e., Justin Harmon and DGL?
Um, Potentially, and it's going to come down to if I think on offense, if Brad trusts them to handle the ball. Um, I'm trying to pull up what I mean. Yeah, oh wow, Drake Gibbs Lawhorn hasn't turned the ball over since January 27th. Obviously, I know he hasn't played like an insane amount since then, but still.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I mean, if they can handle the ball, Iowa State plays they Taman Lipsey. He plays a lot of minutes for them, and he's 6'1", a smaller kind of quick guard that can really facilitate. And so I think Harmon especially could maybe be a good matchup for him there. Um, yeah, I don't
With
know. It's I think for me it's just whoever can facilitate the best. Whoever can
right.
just take care of the ball, facilitate the best. That's going to be the minutes. If it is Dre and Harmon, then um, that's fair. I totally get that. That's kind of where this you mentioned it earlier, and I wanted to get back to it. Is like coming into the season, right? The whole talk was who's a point guard. There's no point guard on this team, and I think those criticisms were fair. But my whole thing was just like I think they just kind of get it done by committee. Like everybody can kind of do it in some capacity, and this is where a game where that can kind of probably almost help that everybody really in some capacity can. Obviously, Damascus emerged as like the true point guard, I would say. But Hawkins can facilitate, Rodgers can facilitate, Shannon can do his thing. Um, Even Harmon and Dre to an extent can do it too. Like there are multiple guys that can go about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was one of those guys in the preseason just talking about how I felt the ceiling to this team was limited just because we didn't have that go-to guy just to handle the ball at the end of the games. But this is one of the reasons I think this could arguably be Brad Underwood's greatest single coaching job, both dealing with Shannon's off the court issues and just the different style of team that this is built. I actually kind of think that the Illinois team that you're watching right now could kind of be of what the future of basketball in general kind of looks like. The NBA is already there in the sense where it's just a bunch of more wing type of players being able to switch, having speed, being able to shoot the three. Brad's kind of built that. He doesn't really recruit smaller guys nearly as much anymore. And to get back to check it out point, yeah, Harmon just needs to develop some confidence. Right now on offense, he'll play his defense, but on offense, it doesn't seem like for the past month or so he wants to take the shot anymore. And I think with Iowa State, their defense is so good that if you have the opportunity to take a high value shot, you need to take it.
Have to.
And I just don't know if he's going to be the guy. DGL is kind of the opposite. DGL, he's obviously young, freshman guy. He loves to shoot. So with him, I'm kind of worried about the opposite, that he may be a little overly aggressive in taking a shot if he sees one, as opposed to waiting for something a little bit more high value. And check it out once again. Says Brad is flexible enough to see what works and to go with that. That's
Yeah,
what we're hoping for.
yeah.
you
And
know,
I think
um,
that's where I do think Brad has done a really, really good job this year. And even just like right, like even what mid-December or whatever, they just switched pretty much their identity. And I
yeah,
know I forget who wrote the article, but it just came out recently about basically Brad Underwood talked with Jay Wright after the Florida Atlanta game, and Jay Wright was just like, "You have to go with it. Like you just have to go with like just sell out on it." And that's when Illinois' season kind of flipped. Like they obviously they still had a solid start. I'm not saying that, but
I
from
think
there
we're in
on,
the top
it
25 before everything happened with Shannon. And then when Shannon started missing
yeah,
games, we just skyrocketed
yeah,
offensively because basically we had to build our offensive sets around Damask. And yeah, as you said, it's been a complete turnaround season wise, at least on the offensive end.
yeah, no, 100%, and just buying into it.
Yeah, Peter checks in. Thank you for watching, Peter. Don't forget point guard Moretti too. I don't know if Moretti's going to be playing much in this game. I think DGL's kind of overtaken him. He's got more point guard naturalist like abilities, but I just wonder if the stage might be a little bit too big for him. But who knows? We'll see. Again, we're going to need the ball handlers. It's just fortunately for Illinois, the way Brad has built this team is we have a team full of solid passers who can handle the ball, who can, all five guys on the floor in some lineups can attack the rim, which again for Illinois is just a huge, huge advantage. Goody could see some more playing time in this game. I think Joe's mentioned that earlier. His 3-point shot's going to be very, very important.
Yeah, and Iowa State, that's like they are so there's what 362 D1 teams this year. I think they're 354th in defensive 3-point attempt rate. So basically, what that means is they give up
Wow.
more 3-point attempts than basically anybody in the entire country. They also give up more assists, and a lot of that is kind of going back to they put so much pressure on the ball. Is if you can get it out of that initial trap or whatever or pressure, you're going to have somebody open, and it's going to be on the perimeter because they're always going to rotate to take away the paint, take away the rim. And so that's where Goody, I think, can come in, and if he can have one of those games where he can knock down three, maybe four threes, that'll be very big. I do think so, just because that the 3-point shots are going to be there. And I know Illinois has been, they've been solid. I wouldn't call them like an elite 3-point shooting team, but they've been solid. And so it's even, Goody's obviously, I would say, the go-to 3-point shooter, but the rest of them have to step up too.
We currently have 215 people watching this across all platforms. And let's be honest, Illini fans are obsessed with the Sweet 16 and obsessed with their basketball team. How do I know that? In about a week, since Joe's last appearance, essentially, we've gained almost 100 subscribers. We've gone over the 500 mark, which was our goal before the end of basketball season. So I appreciate that so much. If you guys are watching, just take a look in the corner, see if you guys are subscribed to this channel. Sometimes I'm going to show up in your algorithm, even if you're not. But if you can help us reach 1,000, that would be amazing for a small YouTube channel like ours. So, Joe, right now the line last I saw was Iowa State -2. The game is in Boston. Give me the game script that you think Illinois needs to run in to come out victorious and make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do. At the end of the day, I think this game is going to be basically coming down to the wire. Um, Illinois, I think. So obviously, we talked a lot about limit turnovers, and I'm not going to kind of reiterate that because Peter L says it there. Dumbass needs to limit his turnovers. Like turnovers just need to be limited 100%. I think the other thing is you do need to get Terrence Shannon in transition. Like I think Iowa State's still a good transition defense, but like just don't even let them set up. Terrence Shannon has to have a pretty big game, and obviously he's been doing that for however many games now at this point in terms of scoring the ball. But he's got to get going. You got to knock down threes because those are going to be there. And then defensively, like, and we haven't talked too much about the defense, but like, you just got to. I know Illinois struggled defensively. The tournament they played a little bit better against weaker opponents. You just got to make life as tough as possible. And so what I mean is just like Iowa State's, they're not like an elite offense, but they have dudes that can score. I think you have to make it tough on Lipsy and Gilbert. If Tipsy and or not Tipsy, Lipsy and Gilbert, if they are going to hit tough shots, then you just got to keep up offensively, which Illinois obviously can do. Um, just force them into tough shots, and you figure it out from there. Because I think obviously Illinois has way more scores than Iowa State. Just got to make life as tough as possible, stay connected on screens, things like that. So those are kind of like what I would see is you make Iowa State take tough shots. You get Terrence Shannon going in transition, and then you limit the turnovers. Have a Hawkins facilitate, Goody knock down threes, that type of thing.
Is this a game that Illinois can win with scoring 73 points?
I think so, and the reason I slightly lean Illinois, I think in this matchup is I think Illinois can win like a 67-62 game if it came down to it. I don't have as much confidence that Iowa State could win like 85-84, if that makes sense. Like I I think Illinois has the potential. If that happens, then the defense does have to be obviously on point. It has to be on point and force Iowa State into tough shots. If Iowa State's doing the same, and then yeah, if it comes down to 3-4 minutes, like I trust Illinois' offense a lot that they can get things done. I know they've had a couple late game struggles this year, but I do think that they can pull it off.
So you would agree with me that the pace of play is probably pretty important. We know Illinois can win a game in the 80s and 90s, and not a lot of teams in the country can match them point for point. Getting 85 points or higher. But how do I phrase this? You think Illinois has a better chance? Do you think Illinois has a better chance of beating Iowa State in a game in the 70s, or do you think Iowa State has a better chance of beating Illinois in a game, in the high 80s or 90s. Let's put it that way.
I think Illinois has a better chance in like the 70s or whatever. Like I just don't see unless the only way Iowa State can I think get to the 80s is if like Illinois has I don't know 18 turnovers, something like that. It's just if it's if it's a game where I mean Iowa State's just getting like 35 transition points, then like sure, then they can't. That's their path to getting to the 80s. But in general, I would say I trust Illinois to win more in the 70s. Of if they need to slow it down and grind it out, I think they can. And Iowa State defensively, for as much pressure and stuff that they provide, they do make offenses work for a lot of the shot clock. But I think that I think Illinois is more likely to be able to do that than Iowa State run and gun and keep up with Illinois.
Peter says Illinois has more talented players. Sure, I mean Illinois tends to have more talented players in a lot of the games that they're in, but Iowa State is super well coached. And if you haven't watched the preview that we did a couple days ago with Alec Bussey from Cyclone Alert 24/7, please do. That whole program, that fan base has really bought in to their head coach, and this is just not a team that you're going to want to take lightly. Check it out. It says it's the opposite of Purdue's game. Purdue has offense that is better after the other team sets up. Uh, yeah, I mean, with that monster in the middle, that makes sense. Illinois, I think, does have two different ways to attack you, when you include the transition part. Justin says, please hit the like button, guys. Absolutely, please. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Jay, thank you for checking in. And I see a Cardinals logo in the top left, so I wish I didn't click on that. But regardless, go Cubs, go. If Illinois doesn't get hardly any transition buckets, advantage Iowa State. This cannot be slowed down half-court game. And I think, Joe, you kind of agree with that, right?
Yeah, like Illinois can do it. It's just if the game gets into a half court type game, then the margin of error for Illinois decreases a lot. If they can get out in transition and, I mean, get Terrence Shannon 10, 12, 14 points just basically by Terrence Shannon bowling his way to the rim, like that's going to be big. I do think so.
Yeah, and I actually thanks Peter for reminding me, and Joe, you just kind of brought it up. I think Shannon's ability to get foul calls on the other team is going to be potentially huge for this game, just because obviously the whole team, Iowa State team, is a good defensive team, but anytime you can get one of their better defenders out of the game, it may just be a marginal decrease in defensive output, but you'll absolutely take it. And quite honestly, we can use all the free points that we can get against a defense like Iowa State.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Joe, are you a drinker? Are you a
Not,
beer drinker?
I'm not.
Okay, well, what I'll do is you can join me one day at Riverlands Brewery, and I'll buy you some outstanding merch. How's that?
That sounds good to me.
Riverlands is a proud sponsor of the show. Hey, beer lovers. Riverlands Brewing Company, your favorite Chicagoland craft beer friends, are still in party mode after their recent 5th anniversary bash last weekend. In case you missed it, both barrel-aged Imperial Stouts are on tap and on sale in new 500 ml bottles. And if Hayes is calling your name, grab the Anniversary Triple IPA. All three will be gone very soon. Don't wait up. Visit them at riverlandsbrewing.com and follow their social for all beer releases, food trucks, and events. Riverlands Brewing Company, brewed by friends, for friends. Must be 21 or older. Enjoy responsibly. Now, Joe, let's take a couple minutes at least just to talk about your team now. The other team on the other side of the bracket, that's still representing the Big Ten. We kind of talked about how fortunate bracket luck has kind of been for Illinois, but it's been nice for Purdue too on the other side. I'm trying to be, nice here. Tell me like how the first two games have gone for the Boilermakers.
Yeah, so obviously the 16th seed. There's that whole thing. It was just good to get that out of the way. Like Purdue was never losing that game, as much as and it's fair, the trolling and all that stuff, because hey, they lost to a 16th seed last year. They were never losing that game. They just needed to get through it, get the monkey off their back, move on. And then Utah State was like, I mean, that might have been Purdue's best game of the entire season. Like it was just, it was crazy. And Edey dominated the first half, and then everybody else did what like everybody got going in that second half, which is big going into the Gonzaga game. It was just and like Utah State isn't a bad team by any means, but
Right.
it didn't really matter who Purdue probably played on that day. They it was Purdue was a buzzsaw on that day, knocking down threes. Edie got going defensively; they were great. So it truly was, I think, probably their best game of the season. And when we talk about Purdue teams, we usually don't say that about them in March or even late in the regular season. So it is nice to see that happen at least in March and hopefully carry over as we move forward.
Now you guys play Gonzaga on Friday evening, and obviously there's another video Joe obviously has of scouting that game as well. Give us a quick synopsis, basically, of what you expect to see Friday night.
Yeah, so I mean, Purdue and Gonzaga played earlier this year in the Maui Invitational, but that game was just like it was ugly. Neither team shot the ball well, and both teams are very good shooting teams. So I think you're going to see. So one thing though that I think maybe could translate is Gonzaga played Edie pretty well, and now Edie still ended up with like what did he end up with? He still ended up with 25 points and 14 rebounds, but like Gonzaga defended him pretty well, to be honest. The EK forced him out. And so I think there's going to be that battle of what can Edie do down low? Can EK continue to kind of push Edie out, make life as difficult as possible? And that's all you can kind of hope for against Edie is you push him out and you just hope that he misses the shots. Gonzaga runs three bigs now. And so when you think of Purdue's starting lineup, they start three smaller guards. So there's going to be that kind of interesting matchup. I assume Lawyer is going to take Ben Gregg, who's a 6'10" forward, and kind of like what Purdue did to Illinois in that first matchup. And when in the start is basically of Edie one man zone, a big, and I understand it was Rogers for Illinois, but a non-shooter. And then you have Lawyer just take this forward that shoots threes, and you just kind of hope that you don't get burned on the rebounding. So that would be an important thing. And then just also like I mean, Gonzaga just they run good stuff, and I understand that they're in like a weaker conference or whatever, but Purdue's going to have to be on point defensively. They're going to have to be able to defend the pick and roll, get out to shooters, and getting out to shooters is something they haven't done great this year. So it should be a fun game. I am excited. I think Purdue wins, but there's definitely some paths that Gonzaga can easily win this game. Also, I mean Gonzaga just played two great games, which also Purdue did, but both teams are kind of rolling right now.
Yeah, I think there's only maybe a couple teams in this tournament that have the capability of beating Purdue and Gonzaga. Like they've got good talent on the floor, but I think Mark Few is kind of the X factor there when
Mhm.
it comes to game planning. And he's got game tape that we know he's going over right now. If there's one guy who I'd argue if I had any coach that I could choose to kind of game plan for a game against Purdue, Mark Few is probably the guy. So it should be a hard fought matchup. But you think Purdue does prevail on Friday night?
Yeah, I think if Purdue plays Purdue's ball, then they win. But at the same thing, like if Gonzaga knocks, there's always Gonzaga knocks down a ton of threes, or things like that. Like it could, I think Purdue wins. But I'm also very much not like Purdue is going to win for sure. Like
Sure.
there's definitely tons of paths that Gonzaga wins.
I'm definitely going to say I think Purdue wins pretty handedly.
Well,
They've been my prediction since about a month before the season ended. I just think, and I promise is not to jinx anyone. It's just I think this is one of those. They're super locked in. The weaknesses that we saw last year are no longer weaknesses this year. Not even they didn't even fix those weaknesses. If anything, their strengths this year. With their guards growing up a little bit and their 3-point shooting.
yeah.
Check it out. It says the only thing Zags have going for them is low expectations. Expect a snooze game with a big Purdue win.
Hey, I hope you're right. I really do hope you're right. I know Painter will not have um, Purdue's, Purdue. He won't have Purdue thinking that way of a snooze fest type. I mean, there was, I think it was a Utah State student reporter asked Painter a question, and it kind of went viral. I don't know if you guys had seen it, but basically the Utah State reporter was like, "So you guys are like, by all probabilities expected to beat Utah State," and Painter was like, "Let me tell you something. Like, every team is good right now."
Yeah.
So I'm hoping Painter has them ready. There's obviously, as you guys are Illinois fans, I'm sure you're going to be crazy nervous about this game. I go back and forth between, hey, I'm pretty confident Purdue's going to win, and also like Purdue's 2 wins away from Final Four, and they can do it. And then I get nervous. So, but that's what March Madness is, right? It's supposed to be like that.
Yeah, I absolutely, of course, I bleed orange and blue, and I'm hoping the Illini go all the way.
Yeah.
But the idea of seeing a game between Purdue and UConn in that national championship, like just the way those two teams playing are, I think it could go down to being one of the best games that you can ask for in a national championship game. Check it out. Says anyone else notice how Sonny corrects bad grammar? Thank you. Yeah, sometimes my brain thinks a little faster than I talk. As some of you guys know, I have a concussion, so sometimes my speech is off a little bit. But thanks for being patient with all that. So we got your prediction with the Purdue game. What exactly do you think might happen Thursday night?
Um, I'm gonna pick Illinois. I picked them in my bracket. I'm gonna stick with it. I do think it's a very like, if I was to put like percentages on it or whatever, I would say like Illinois 55%, Iowa State 45%. I'm gonna lean Illinois. I think that the offense prevails. I think they get enough, but I do think it's gonna be a pretty tight game.
I agree with you. I think Illinois is kind of the sexy team right now. It's the flashy team. We're fun to watch. And I think right now a lot of people aren't giving Iowa State the credit that they're due. Vegas has Iowa State favored, and Vegas is very rarely wrong. Austin's prediction was Illinois by 9,
Mm,
85-76. Now I hope you guys watching don't hate me for this, but I actually think our run might be over tomorrow night. The game I see happening is I think we get off to a really hot start, but then the Iowa State defense kind of figures it out a little bit. And I'm going to say final score 76-71 Iowa State. I hope I'm wrong. I again, it's one of those, I'm enjoying this team. A lot of these guys are graduating next year, so we're not going to be able to see this um but see this again, but we'll see what happens. Kent at Casual Big Ten. What up, Sonny and Joe? I'm late, so you may have talked about this, but if your boys can get stops, they will win. Yeah, it's. I'm hoping we can score. Yeah, I think that's going to be the key. I think our defense has gotten a little bit better than people are giving it credit for over the last few weeks. I mean, don't get me wrong, we were very, very bad for almost a month and a half stretch.
yeah.
And our best defense was essentially our amazing offense. But the offense is actually, or the defense has kind of stepped up um, as of late. Brad says, "I agree. I think Illinois is just happy to be in the Sweet 16. I don't think Brad and the players are happy to be in the Sweet 16. And I think I might be speaking for myself when I say I'm just so relaxed and content being where we're at now. But I just think the as I said earlier, the monkey's gone now. Like, this is not a burden that we have to carry any longer. Obviously we're going to Purdue and Illinois are always going to compare themselves, being the two better programs in the Big Ten. But Purdue is further along in their development cycle than Illinois is. They've been to these Sweet 16s. They've gone to the final, or sorry, no, you
They have
haven't, but
not.
Elite Eight. But it's one of those where we're just slowly building little by little. But that's Joe, thank you so much for coming on today. If you don't mind, just tell the folks one more time where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Joe Jackson CBB. I've been doing a lot of film threads. I have a bunch of Iowa State stuff up, also Gonzaga stuff if you do care about the Purdue Gonzaga game. And then my YouTube is called Feed the Post, and so that's where you'll find like a full in-depth scouting report for both Illinois, Iowa State, Purdue Gonzaga. If either or both of those teams are to win, plan is to have scouting reports up for their Elite Eight matchups. If they were to make the Final Four, have them up there, so on and so forth. So yeah, do appreciate you having me on. Always enjoy talking hoops with you.
Yeah, hopefully, if we do get a chance to do another preview, I might kind of have you come back and we'll kind of do this again. You might be our good luck charm.
Maybe I might have to do that.
Again, if you guys are watching, if you don't mind on your way out, hit that like button. Let's all do it collectively. Let's do a little like spike on the video. I'd really appreciate that. We've at our 565 subscribers now. Thank you all so much. Again, we're at 467 2 nights ago. So this has been an amazing run, and we're all enjoying, this basketball team. It's one of the more likable teams, in particular if you're an Illinois fan. If you're not an Illinois fan, you may have your opinion on how things have gone, but thank you all so much for watching. We'll kind of continue with this content. Hopefully we'll have another game to talk about on Friday, but either way, we should be here for a post game. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.